Hey everybody, it's Zach from TennisProDoc.com, and today we have the teardown of the adidas Stycon BOA as well as the durability test of the adidas Stycon BOA. So let's get right to it. So the first test we're going to perform on the adidas Stycon BOA is the durability test of the outsole. I like to compare these shoes to my control shoe, which is the New Balance 696. I use this as a control shoe because it's sort of a middle-of-the-road shoe between a light shoe and a durability shoe. So I use this as my control. When I throw the Dremel on this with its highest grit sandpaper, for 10 seconds, I produce 4 millimeters of an indentation in the outsole on this shoe. So that's the control. So now, let's perform the same test on the Stycon BOA. So let's check the Stycon versus our control. I actually had to perform this test twice because I wasn't sure I got the right result. On the Stycon, we only had about a feather over a millimeter of damage to the outsole. That's 1 millimeter only of damage to the outsole after 10 seconds with our highest grit Dremel test, as compared to our control, which was 4 millimeters. So that is an extremely tough, durable outsole. So the next part of the durability test actually happened over the last few weeks. So since the first video we did on the adidas Stycon BOA, I played regularly in these on pretty gritty hard courts. And then the last time I played with them on clay to see how the tread would hold up. So here's what I found. The tread barely gave an inch. There is still great definition of all of the herringbone coming from the forefoot, midfoot, and the rear foot. The only place that I could find any bit of wear whatsoever was right under my big toe, and this is because typically when I slide right on this area, but I do slide a lot on a hard court and on clay, and therefore only maybe a little bit of wear on this area. Otherwise, the treads have held up wonderfully, and that was also reflected in our Dremel test. Next part of the durability test is the upper of the shoe. How would this knitted upper with a laceless pattern work? Well, to be honest, it worked great. The only thing that I noticed was this little bit of wear here on the lateral, the outside of the shoe, right here at the junction of where the outsole meets the upper of the shoe. Everywhere else almost looks out of box except for all the clay over it. On the medial side, inside of the shoe, the reinforced ankle, this padding looks great, and the reinforced foxing up here, this rubber foxing up here on the forefoot for more durability, looks nearly out of the box still, even though it's a little dirty from clay. The inside of the shoe did break in, however, with the BOA closure, it did fine. I experienced really no slipping or sliding in the shoe. I felt very secure every time I played, especially on clay. All right, what do you say? We cut this open. All right, so here's your BOA closure. Here's the knob here. And if you look under here, that knob is attached to the outsole, the very outer knitting. Then you have one small strap and then one wider strap here. And these are tied all the way down here to this long strap right here. And then if I press it in, they all pull to here. So all these straps pull from your toes up to your midfoot. All right, next we've cut through the BOA closure layer and we're down to the base layer of the upper. Now, as you can see, Here is the elastic-like material up here where the high top comes up around your ankle, and then it fans out into more of a knitted material. As you can see, it also has a lot of portals for heat distribution. But this layer really is like a glove down here. It really kind of sucks your foot into the shoe, and you can tell now that all the layers have been exposed how much of a glove-like fit this shoe has. So now we're going to look at the outside or lateral portion of the shoe first. Put the medial or inside portion on the side. Now the first thing that I notice on this shoe is the really generous ankle reinforcement, this padding here. This really keeps your foot locked into the shoe. And for the original Stycon without the BOA closure, this is really important at keeping your foot from wanting to lift out of the shoe. So let's take a look at the outsole and midsole of the adidas Stycon BOA. We've talked about the outsole and how durable it is, but let's talk about the midsole of this shoe. The first thing I noticed about the midsole is, look how spongy it is. It really deforms. It's a very soft midsole. Now, this is good for comfort. It's going to feel good out of the box, just like this shoe did. However, this will wear down over time and potentially could give your feet some tired feeling. I didn't experience this in the few weeks I played with this shoe, but perhaps over a few months of playing in it, this could happen. But like I said, pretty soft midsole. However, it is a thicker midsole, so that does make up for it some. So let's take a look at the heel of this shoe. If you can see here, here's the heel counter. Right? It's not the tallest heel counter in the world, but this is a high top shoe, so it isn't the end of the world. You'll notice that this does have a little bit of extra padding on the back side to give the shoe a little more durability, but around the back side underneath this ankle pad, there actually isn't much padding under the heel counter. If you flip this around, you'll notice that the actual meat of the heel counter comes all the way down into the midfoot and then blends with another rigid layer out here. So you just have an unbelievable amount of stability going from the back part of the shoe on the heel counter, right here, and then it comes all the way down and underneath. So this is almost just like a turtle shell. You can kind of hear it, just my finger on it. So upon further inspection of this turtle shell, I cut the back of the heel open a little further. And I noticed that this midsole material does come all the way up and around the shoe. And that's really going to lock you in. So another nice stability feature. So let's look at the inside layers of the upper of the shoe like we were talking about. As you can see, this inside layer right here is actually two layers of its own. Here's a real padded but breathable mesh, and then on top of it is another mesh layer. So you got two of these mesh layers, and when you crank the BOA closure down, this also does close down a bit. But with how padded this is, this keeps you pretty comfortable and also acts as a vacuum seal around your foot. So it's really interesting to see that this is actually two layers in and of itself on that inside layer of the upper of the shoe. If you move up, then you can see this layer up here is pretty much all this poly rubber material, pretty stiff. Okay? And then the elastic layer up here where the high top and the ankle go. Moving up, you see again the BOA closure and then the knit outer of the shoe. This was actually pretty tough to get through, even with a brand new box cutter. So let's put this teardown into context. Some really amazing technology that's been fit into this shoe, right? The 3 layers and then the inside layer of the upper is actually its own 2 layers. Really, what an interesting way to create a vacuum seal around the foot without having to use laces. Because remember, there's a BOA version of this, that's this version, then there's also just a laceless version. And that's how they get that vacuum seal, those 3 layers. So what an interesting piece of technology. The one thing I wasn't as excited about once I actually cut the shoe open was how soft the midsole was. I would have liked maybe just a little bit more rigidity in the midsole. However, the shank of the shoe is pretty wide and long, so that does provide a little extra stability to the shoe and a little more responsiveness, especially on clay. Now, I did play with these for a while before I moved to a clay court to see how these would grip and move. I had absolutely no problems gripping the clay, tracking down drop shots, or serving and volleying, which is kind of the biggest test of a shoe on clay. If you can stay firm and solid serving and volleying with a shoe on clay after using it on a hard court for a while, that's a real big testament to the shoe's durability. I never had one problem with blisters or pain in these shoes, and to be honest, these were probably the most comfortable shoes I've put on in several years on a tennis court. Now, if you like this shoe, you can also check out the Nike Air Zoom Vapor Cage 4s, which we will be tearing down next. So if you want to see that content, stick around and click the subscribe and notification buttons. That way you'll be the first to see that shoe go under the circ saw and box cutters. So everybody, I hope you have a great day, great night, wherever you may be tuning in from. I will see you all next time.